Hey guys, it's Malthus here once again, and today I've got quite the build to showcase for you guys. Now, as I mentioned in the previous Elementalist video, I think that it's a very strong ascendancy that can make many different types of builds work because it just gives so much to your overall build through the use of the buff golems. In this type of build right here, we have 8 golems and they give all kinds of stuff, including lots of regen, lots of damage, lots of hit, lots of crit, and lots of damage reduction, as well as some attack and cast speed. And with that in mind, I kind of wanted to recreate a Thor type based Mjolnir build where you leap slam onto things and then kill them, similar to the, let's say, one scene in Thor Ragnarok where he jumps down and zaps everyone, right? So that's the idea behind the build. I wanted to make a Mjolnir build that could just do a lot of its killing through leap slam attacks, but as well as that, it has some cyclone in the back pocket for when it needs to get a little bit more serious. In the end, it has turned out that I probably use cyclone a lot more than I anticipated, but we can definitely still leap slam onto things and kill them. Most of the time, just about instantly. But the build itself has just come together to become pretty funky because I'm using cast on crit, I'm using Mjolnir, and on top of that, my regen was so good that I could sustain righteous fire. And that's not something that's really happened pretty much ever before without trying to build into the righteous fire, because currently I have no additional fire res, barely any regen on my tree. It's just that the stone golem with this many golems and this much buff effect can get you quite a lot of regen, and I've been using righteous fire full time since level 30. And that's just the insane power of Stone Golem that maybe some people still have not caught on to. And with the Golem Ascendancy from Elementalist and then stacking up to 8 or 9 Golems, you can get like 800 regen from your Stone Golem, 800 life regen per second from your Stone Golem, which for my current life base is something like 20% life regen per second, and then stack it with a few life recovery things out there, and you've got yourself Perma RF, which is a nice, tasty 40% more spell damage buff. It's not the RF doing any damage itself, it's just buffing my overall Mjolnir damage. So there is still a bit of a way to go to fine-tune the build. I haven't quite gotten a 6 link on yet, which I think will incorporate another skill like Wave of Conviction. At the moment, all you're seeing is a 5 link action with 2 arcs, one slotted into the Mjolnir and one slotted into the cast on crit Cyclone setup. And these 2 arcs do a huge amount of damage thanks to the Righteous Fire, all of the Golem buff effects, and on top of that I'm using Elemental Equilibrium on my Cyclone to make everything weak to lightning damage. So that's why we can't use a Wrath Aura, that's why we can't use any Herald of Thunders, because we really do want to focus on that Elemental Equilibrium, cold damage only for our Cyclone, to make things just a lot weaker to resist and overall up our single target a big amount, because the clear itself really isn't any, well, it's not in any problem and doesn't need any assist. You can see that the Impulsor we're using does a lot of clear already, and it's a very sustainable tanky build, at least thus far. By the end of the character, should have something like 6k life, a lot of regen, good life leech, and huge amounts of clear, as well as some decent single target. Haven't quite gotten into any real single target yet, but you will see just a couple of little clips of some bosses, and hopefully by the time the character gets to Elder Guardians and Uber Elder himself, if he cleans up all of the single target just, completely smoothly, then I think it's going to be one of the best builds I've done in quite a while. Just aesthetically, the kind of concept of a bunch of stupid ideas together, and then just the fun of it ends up probably being one of the best builds I would have done. We'll have to wait and see for the next couple of days, see how it comes together, but there's nothing particularly expensive about it. There's nothing particularly out there to try and make it work. Just some really strong interactions between a currently rather nice, well-rounded ascendancy of Elementalist, a Mjolnir, which isn't too popular an item either, and then all kinds of fun shit like Righteous Fire, which you could definitely take off and just have 20% increased regen. My damage at the moment is well and truly overkill, but it's so much fun being able to sustain Righteous Fire when you're not really supposed to be able to. And originally, I think the idea for this build would probably work best for something like Cospre's Malice cast on crit, because you have such little percent damage on a tree like that the Elementalist Ascendancy with all the golems really does fill out a lot of damage you would otherwise not get, and potentially enhance that build in quite a few different ways. And it's probably what I would have done if I wanted the most effective build out of a new Elementalist and cast on crit, but the Mjolnir action just seemed a little more weird and fun. So that's the build for now. I'm going to get into how I've built it and what the character looks like, but I do think Elementalist can do just about anything at the moment. So here is the character, level 88 Elementalist called Mjolems. Mjolnir, golems, there you go. Currently at 5.3k life because I've been filling out the damage and trying to make all my utility as smooth as possible. At this point, I can still fill out plenty of life, and I'll probably try and hit around 6k, and it should end up being somewhat of a tanky build. The kind of MTX scheme doesn't seem too Mjolnir-y, but it's because I just ended up having the new armor set and I kind of wanted to build around it. I think it looks pretty sweet on a witch. So we are building around Mjolnir. If you're unfamiliar how the weapon works, socket some sort of lightning skill into it, and then every time you hit with a melee attack, or really any attack just on hit, then you will be unleashing the arc or whatever skill you have inside of it. Currently it's an arc. You can have another Mjolnir, but you'll have to have a different skill in the other Mjolnir since they share a cooldown for the same skill. But with the cast on crit setup in your chest and the Cyclone, it doesn't share a cooldown with this arc, so you can have two separate arcs and they're going off at pretty frequent rates. Separate to each other, however, and then ultimately with this Cyclone cast on crit setup over here, my 6th link, I probably want to get a Wave of Conviction in as well, so that we're alternating between Arc and Wave of Conviction, and getting a bigger output of DPS, thanks to the exposure as well as all of the elemental equilibrium I have. But currently, most of the damage is coming from Arc. We do have increased crit strikes here, because my crit not that great for the spells, and then Inspiration. Now, you can see I have Inspiration over here as well, currently in the Cyclone setup, which is Cyclone, Crit Strikes, Inspiration, Cast on Crit, and Arc. And Inspiration gives you a bunch of more Ellie damage, bit of crit whenever you spend some mana, and it is pretty much 100% uptime, as you can see. Boom, 5 Inspiration charges. With the triggered setup, you won't get Inspiration charges because you're never spending any mana, but if you get your Inspiration charges up through the Cyclone setup, then you will get the benefits of the Inspiration setup in your Mjolnir. So that's how this one works, and that's where a lot of our damage is coming from. We've got plenty of chains. We have the Arc additional chain helm enchant. It's not all that important. I was actually very much deliberating as to what I should do, whether I should get a Golem helm enchant, because if you get a Stone Golem buff, for example, helm enchant, your Righteous Fire sustains even easier, and it becomes way nicer to be able to do this sort of thing. But I just wanted to try and get a bit more damage, or maximum damage, and see where we go from there. So we got one of those. We are running the Primordial Chain Amulet this time around, which gives me 3 additional golems on top of the 5 that you can get pretty easily to start with. So the Golem Ascendancy gives you +1, +1, +1 over here. And then if you use an Anima Stone, you're already at 5 golems. Wait, 6, 5 golems. And then after that, you have another 3 from the amulet here. They do get a lot weaker life-wise, but you should be able to help maintain the golems with a bit of life passives and some regen across the tree. And then you have to just summon all your bullshit golems, and each and every one of them gives you a huge buff. When you have this level of golemage and the ascendancies, you get 400% increased buff effect from all of your golems, and an additional 180% increased damage from these nodes here and this node here. And then the Flame Golem himself gives you like 100% damage. All in all, you just get a lot of different things. But you can see, just to begin with, exactly how we can sustain Righteous Fire. Let me get rid of this real quick. Right now, currently, Righteous Fire does quite a lot of damage to me, right? Because regen, it's not that good, and I don't have any additional fire res. If we get our stone golem out, or rather we have to get all of our golems out so that I can actually have all the proper buff effect. Like so, and then 1, 2, and 3. You got to pick some double golems. The buff effects from each individual golem doesn't stack, so you got to pick some doubles, and it doesn't really matter what you do. Just ideally, you don't get 2 lightning golems because that will affect your elemental equilibrium sometimes. Now, with all my golems out, I have 950 tooltip life regen, and now when I press Righteous Fire, you can see, check it out, pretty damn easy to sustain. And even can throw in a Blood Rage, which I do quite frequently, and it's just a little bit unsustainable at the moment. But with Leech and certain Pantheons like this one here, 5% avoid over time damage, and then 5 reduce fire taken while moving, does help sustain as well. But we help our sustain through a belt that has some life recovery rate. That's an Elder mod. Managed to craft this one with a strength essence, and then just bit of life recovery. That's what you're going for. You got your vitality, and ideally you're going for a jewel that has life recovery rate affected by vitality. Also got Zealotry, Arcane Surge, but that's not too important. You can get that while attaching Blood Rage to Arcane Surge and just have it on demand by pressing Blood Rage. But the idea is you pretty much want that Vitality Recovery life rate. Or you can go a Purity of Fire. You can go different Vitality mods as well. There's a Life Regen one. There's a good Leech one. Currently, that's the one I'm rolling. And so that's basically the just core of the build. You have golems, you have a lot of them. They give you a lot of different things. The stone golem, most importantly, gives you a lot of life regen that lets you sustain RF. You could just not use Righteous Fire. That's totally fine, like I mentioned. And then you have like 20 to 25% life regen. You become a very tanky build, but it's more damage. 40% more spell damage almost. It's pretty crazy, and it's like having an extra link, like a 7th link to your entire setup. And it might be worth it, but for a lot of things, a lot of maps, I'll probably be taking Righteous Fire out just to be a little safer, because the damage is definitely still there otherwise. Besides that, the rest of the gear, we just crafted an Assassin Mark Ring so that I have a bit of cold damage to attacks. That lets me do my elemental equilibrium, which is this thing over here. Every time I hit with Cyclone, things are going to be weaker to both fire and lightning. The important one being lightning, because Righteous Fire doesn't really deal much damage in this setup. And then I just got some dexterity. It's fucking whatever. It's kind of a crap ring. And the rest of the gear is basically just trying to fill out strength, life, resist, because we do need quite a lot of strength to be able to wear the Mjolnir up to 412 strength-wise. And then I've also got a shield with +1 lightning spell skills, focus double damage, press the focus button whenever you want for big damage. Now, a few other things to mention. There isn't really much you can do with the secondary ascendancy, since we can't yet Herald of Thunder into the build. That would ruin elemental equilibrium. You're not going for this shit. You're just basically getting some more shock effect and guaranteed shock, which is still going to end up being maybe 20 to 30% more damage, but a lot of the time my hits are hard enough that I'm going to be shocking anyway, even on the bigger bosses. I think it's still worth doing over the other stuff, but you could just easily get some stronger Leech or just a bit of area and Ellie as well. But I think it's worth going into this area, and that's why we did it. But the first 2 points you definitely go are golems, then followed up by more golems. And at that point, you are just a god by like level 34 and then level 50 with your normal cruel labs. The golems just do so much work in this type of a build. And the passive tree is more or less just a pretty generic life-based caster tree. You just start as a witch, you're picking up all kinds of crit multi and spell crit and plenty of life that you can in the Templar area and to the Sign area. You try and pick up some good jewels, because jewels are a lot of the crit multi in this build, so we're trying to get lightning, general crit multi and elemental crit multi, and then a bunch of attack speed so that our leap slam doesn't feel that bad. A large part of the reason that I can leap slam around and kill things is because of the attack speed from jewels, because otherwise Mjolnir is not very fast. So that's the playstyle if we can get it going for the one taps, and it's based around the leap slam and some fast attack speed. and that's going to be coming from mostly the jewels. Besides that, yeah, that's basically the character. That's basically the tree. I do have a few little golem nodes here, or rather minion nodes. Take bar if you need them. Stuff like this over here. I did originally spec up here, but I got rid of it because I didn't think it was worth the damage. But otherwise, you can go up there to help sustain your golems through more regen and stuff. And I will probably attach minion life to some of the golems, but we are fairly stressed for gem sockets at the moment. I may have to drop something, but at the moment it should be fine just to attach minion life to at least 3 of my golems, and it should help sustain them. And then if you can also get some consecrated ground flask effect in there. At the moment I don't have a consecrated ground flask, but I might replace the quicksilver for some of the tougher encounters, because that will help regen your golems as well. I'd say that's about all I need to mention for the build for now. We'll have another bit of an update in a couple days when I've done the end game. It's been a very fun, very effective, and very fast build. Nothing too strictly required. I mean, a Mjolnir is pretty easy to get, and Pulse is not terribly hard at the moment either, and a Primordial Chain will go a long way. It's going to be just balancing your character for strength, resists, and life, because you do need a fair amount of strength. And I guess at the moment I have static blows, but I will probably get something like Arcane Potency. Either way, they're not game-breakingly good. You could just easily anoint yourself some Utmost Might to get your Mjolnir on easily, but that's entirely up to you guys and your min-max if you're going to try something like this. That's Mjolems, the Mjolnir Elementalist. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.